I've always liked receiving Nengajo, those traditional Japanese New Year postcards. There's something charming about that little ritual, opening the mailbox on January 1st, sifting through the colorful prints of zodiac animals and cheerful greetings. But last year, something changed that soft spot into a lingering dread. You see, I got a Nengajo that wasn't like the others, and it led me down a path I'd do anything to forget. It all started the morning of January 1st. I'd just woken up in my cramped Tokyo apartment, excited to greet the new year and eat some leftover soba for breakfast. My mailbox was stuffed with the usual batch of greeting cards, from my boss, a co-worker or two, some old college friends. Most were bright with cartoonish prints of the year's zodiac animal, which happened to be the tiger. But one envelope stood out. It was old-fashioned rice paper, rough to the touch, with no return address. The color was off-white, almost yellow, like it had been sitting in someone's attic for decades. Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it right there in the hallway. The card inside bore a single image, a hand-drawn tiger, oddly realistic, its eyes glaring straight at me. Below it was a message in spidery handwriting, "Ekmashitoma. May fortune find you, if it can." Something about those words, and the chilling stare of that tiger, made my heart skip a beat. I was used to more cheerful greetings, like best wishes for the new year, or wishing you happiness. This felt like a warning disguised as a wish. I shrugged it off, figuring maybe it was a quirky card from someone I knew who liked to joke around. After all, if there was no return address, it could be from an old friend trying to be mysterious. I carried the stack of Nengajo upstairs and dumped them on my kitchen table. Then I went about my day, trying to forget the uneasy feeling gnawing at me. That night, however, something strange happened. I heard a faint scratching sound by my front door. At first, I thought it was just a neighbor's cat wandering the hallway. But the noise persisted, moving in a slow circle around the perimeter of my door. A chill spread through my body when I realized there was no cat in my building, no one owned pets. The landlord was strict about that. I crept over to the door, heart pounding, and peered through the peephole. There was nothing but the dimly lit corridor. No cats, no neighbors. Still, the scratching continued, as if some invisible claw was testing the doorframe. I stood frozen by the door for a full 5 minutes before it finally stopped. Sleep didn't come easily that night. A few days later, I remembered the mysterious Nengajo, and decided I should ask around. Maybe someone else got a similarly creepy card. My co-worker, Aya, was the gossip queen, so I asked if she'd heard of any weird postcards going around. She just shrugged and said, "Oh, you mean chain letters. Those do the rounds sometimes, but I haven't seen any this year." I tried explaining the eerie illustration, and the cryptic message, but she seemed unimpressed. I suppose she had her own worries. She was fussing about year-end, deadlines and leftover projects from December. But I couldn't shake this feeling that I was missing something important. That evening, I came home to find the strange Nengajo propped against my teapot. I'd left it in a pile of mail, but it looked like someone had placed it carefully, almost like an offering. With a sinking dread, I realized the eyes of the painted tiger seemed more vivid than before, as if the ink had deepened. I told myself it was my imagination, but the sensation that the drawing was watching me was overpowering. By the following week, nightmares began plaguing me. I'd dream of a huge tiger prowling outside my apartment, its stripes merging with the shadows, its eyes burning. In the dream, I'd see claw marks gouged into the walls and floors. The moment the tiger pounced, I'd wake up, drenched in sweat. Every morning, I checked the door frame for fresh scratches, but there were none. Not until mid-January, anyway. On January 15th, an important date for many New Year's blessings, I woke up to find distinct claw marks on the wooden frame of my front door. They were about knee-high, 4 parallel slashes. My neighbor, Mr. Hirano, was leaving for work at the same time, and he gasped when he saw the fresh gouges. I tried to explain that I had no idea what caused them, but his eyes flickered with an odd recognition. Could it be he started, but stopped himself? Then he headed downstairs without another word. That night, I couldn't bear to be alone in my apartment, so I invited Aya over to show her the card and the scratches. She arrived with some takeout sushi, and tried to reassure me. But when I handed her the Nengajo, her face went pale. "This handwriting," she murmured, tracing the spidery letters. "I think I've seen something like this in an old folklore book. My grandmother used to collect them." My curiosity piqued. I pressed her for details. She explained that in some rural towns, there was a taboo about sending cards on certain days in January, especially if someone had died recently in the household. Supposedly, a vengeful spirit, or even the zodiac's spirit, could attach itself to the card if it wasn't sent with proper rituals. Aya recalled reading a tale of a cursed New Year's card summoning the spirit of that year's zodiac animal to haunt the recipient. At the time, she dismissed it as a ghost story. Hearing that made a knot tighten in my stomach. We decided to burn the card, just in case. I took out a metal pan, lit a match, and dropped the Nengajo in. As the edges curled and blackened, I heard that same scratching at the door. The doorknob rattled, as if something was trying desperately to get in. Aya and I cowered in the kitchen, hearts hammering. The scratching grew louder, more furious. Suddenly, the flames died out, leaving the card only half burned. No matter how many matches I struck, the paper wouldn't catch again. That was when I realized the curse, if it was a curse, wasn't going to go quietly. Panic threatened to overwhelm me. Aya told me to contact someone who understood these old beliefs, a priest or a spiritual medium. Anything. She mentioned a tiny Shinto shrine in the old part of town, run by a priest rumored to know about curses and exorcisms. I didn't care if it sounded crazy, I was desperate. We went the next day, the half-charred Nengajo tucked in a plastic bag. The small wooden shrine was hidden behind an abandoned shopping arcade, and the priest who emerged was ancient, bent, with milky blue eyes. I handed him the card, explaining the story in rushed sentences. He stared at the image, then shook his head gravely. "You must return this to its sender," he told me. "Only the sender's acceptance can break the seal." "But there's no address," I whispered. My voice shook. "How do I follow the spirit?" he interrupted, pointing a gnarled finger at the half-burned tiger. "It will guide you." That evening, I sat in my dimly lit apartment, card laid out in front of me. The scratches on the door had grown deeper. The cold, slinking dread in the air was nearly suffocating. I closed my eyes, focusing on the image of that tiger. It felt insane, but I tried to sense where it wanted me to go. A swirl of dizziness overcame me as if I were about to faint. Suddenly, an address flashed in my mind, an old, disused post office on the outskirts of Tokyo. I don't even know how I recognized it, it might have been from a news story or a random memory. Without questioning, I grabbed my coat, the cursed Nengajo tucked carefully in an envelope, and hailed a taxi into the cold night. When I arrived, the post office was abandoned, its windows boarded up. The wind whistled through gaps in the wood. With trembling hands, I slid the envelope under the locked door, whispering a plea for the curse to end. As soon as the paper left my fingertips, an overwhelming sense of exhaustion washed over me. I slumped to the ground, watching my breath in the frigid air. Then came a deep, resonant growl from behind the building. For a heart-stopping moment, I saw the silhouette of a great tiger, eyes glowing in the moonlight. But it didn't attack. Instead, it padded silently toward the envelope, nose twitching as if sniffing for something. I could only watch in numb terror. Within seconds, the shape dissolved into the darkness, leaving me crouched there in stunned stillness. It's been almost a year since that night. The nightmares stopped, and I haven't received any more cursed Nengajo. Every now and then, though, I check my doorframe for claw marks, just to be sure. Whether it was some spirit of the zodiac, a restless ghost, or my own paranoia, I still don't fully understand. But one thing is certain, I'll never look at a simple New Year's postcard the same way again. If you ever find one without a return address, think twice before you open it. The bright face of a smiling zodiac might be inviting you into a nightmare you can't escape.